I graduated out of my BDS, I wanted to kind of fast track my career growth or recruit you for the jobs in MBA. What they want to see is not a depth of experience, like not a specialized experience, but a breadth of experience into that. You are not just dentists, you are doctors at the end of the day. You understand the industry a lot better. You have interacted with the patients. There is this moral aspect to it, right? You kind of demonize money, that you are leaving patients, you are leaving doing good for the society and going for the money. But in the end, you have to be truthful to your own self. If you're not doing good for your own self, monetary wise, and you are struggling with money right now, how can you even think about doing good for the others?
So, hi everyone, welcome to our next episode of Career Expert Healthcare Edition. And today we have on board Dr. Sankalp. वैसे तो it will be very hard for me to call him by this name because I call him as Sankalp sir. He was my senior in college. And without me giving more information out, I think, sir, you can introduce yourself and we can get started.
Sure. So thanks for having me. And I'm Dr. Sankalp. I graduated back in 2018 from MCODS Mangalore, did my BDS from over there, and then chose this path of MBA. Did my MBA from IMT Ghaziabad back in 2021. I majored in marketing and data analytics. And currently, I'm part of a leadership training batch at one of the healthcare technology firms called Indigi, where I work with the leadership teams of pharma firms where we solve their challenges through technology. And before this, I got lucky and got the chance to work with certain healthcare firms such as Becton Dickinson, which is a global biotechnology firm, Portia Medical, which is again a startup based out of Bangalore that provides healthcare services at home, and a bootstrap startup called Moki AI. I was in MBA when I worked with these firms, and this combination of all these experiences led me to Indigi. So that's been my journey. That's this though on very professional front. But apart from that, I love to run. We'll go for a run after this interview, and then voracious reader. I am currently finishing, I think, the 23rd or the 24th book of my year, and probably will complete 30 books this year. Something that I'm really proud of. So yeah, that's been my journey. Thanks.
Oh, I know how much of a reader you are. I mean, you keep suggesting books to be left, right, and center. So I do know that. And 30 books, that's a really, really good aim. Moving on to the next and most important question, which is why did you pursue an MBA after BDS? And what is the scope like? Should people do that?
Sure. So I think I'll answer this in two parts about why I did not continue going on a clinical path, which is to probably work at a clinic or go for my MDS. And then secondly, why I did go for an MBA. And I think more than my own journey, I really want it for others who are currently figuring it out what they should do, what they can do, right? So this decision to do an MBA or not go for a clinical practice came back in 2017 when I had just finished my final year. I was very confused. Honestly, it was very confusing what to do at that point. And you know what? The thing that really helped me was being true to my own self. The normal path was to go for a clinical practice, as I had told. But then I really asked myself, did I really want to do that? I mean, I do like treating patients, but then did I really want to do 3 more years of probably a clinical master's? Then come back to the same space, starting from the scratch, searching for a job all over again. And by that time, I would have been 27 or 28 in my late 20s and figuring out what I want to do at that moment. And that also comes with a lot of financial constraints. You have to pay a lot of fees if you want to go for an MDS from a private university. And then, even if you want to open a clinic after that, you have to invest a lot of money. And I'm not saying all of this is a bad option. If you're really passionate about it, then that's great. You can go ahead and do it. But then I ask myself, regardless of what others think, what my parents think, what other people are expecting out of me, do I really want this path for my own self? And the answer was probably no, man. I was really not interested to go through that whole procedure again. It didn't excite me. It really did not excite me. So I started searching for what are the other options available. Came through these options of MPH, MHA, MBA, right? And then I saw there was very few doctors who were moving into this business industry. while the healthcare industry was evolving really fast, there were very few doctors who were there. And I thought, this seems like a good space to be in right now because very few people are doing it. I remember Dr. Dhaval Shah is one of them, who is the founder of Pharmacy. Then Dr. Devi Shetty from KMC Mangalore. Yeah, with his Narayana Healthcare. So got really impressed with that and took this path. And then again, so my priority was getting a job that really excites me, maybe takes me to new places and gets me to make an impact that is larger than just one patient in the clinic. Right, that was one. And then money. Definitely, I wanted a good return on my investments, and that's why I chose to go for an MBA.
I understand this fact, matlab, even this is something, जैसे आपने बोला, something which is exciting. Even I would want to do something which is exciting, make a bigger impact than just working on a patient. And I'm not saying that working on a patient is not impactful, but we want to do something different. So that, and
Yeah.
second thing is money. I definitely wanted a return on my investment. Like whenever I go for it, that is something that so I totally relate with you
Mhm.
at this point. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the next most important thing is, Asha, just branching out of this question, not a planned question again, but how would you suggest to a aspiring, like जैसे आपने बोला आप confused थे, so how would
Mhm.
you suggest कि कोई confused है, how do they decide if MBA is an option for them? What should they do? Anything, any tips that you might have?
Sure. So when you are graduating out of your BDS, you kind of feel confused and you see a path which is a very singular path. You see very focused path that clinic and like having a clinical experience is the way to go. But then when you step out and try different jobs or different things, you realize world is such an open place. And there are so many exciting opportunities. I mean, whenever I talk to Anahita, we talk about this whenever we meet. We met at Paus's wedding the last time, and we were talking about how many opportunities there are in this world and how open is the space. And you don't need to restrict yourself to one field. And it's so exciting, right? You just wake up happy every day that there is so much to do in this world. So trying out different things is the first thing to do when you are just out of your BDS, and I suggest everyone to do it. And maybe you would not feel like going for an MBA after that. Maybe you would realize that clinical practice is your thing, but then you won't regret trying out those things and finding your own path. We know people who tried out different things and went back to clinical practice, and they are much more meaningful. They find a lot more meaning in that right now, right? So trying out different things would be the first, I think, your focus should be. And then how do you do that? That's, I think Anahita is a better, I think, judge of that. But I would suggest to have at least a good LinkedIn profile there. That's very important right now. Keep updating your LinkedIn profile. Whatever you learn on LinkedIn, whatever you read and learn, do share it on LinkedIn. Have people and then reach out to people if they can offer you something as a job or maybe some help. And then reach out to Anahita. Yes, she can help you in that.
मेरा प्रमोशन हो रहा है यहाँ पे guys. Okay, but yeah, if that is something that I definitely agree in कि कितनी opportunities हैं, even if let's say you're an intern or you're someone, जैसे अब आप सोचोगे कि हम interns के लिए बोल रहे हैं, what I recommend to interns is take up non-clinical internships. But what I recommend, if you're not an intern, if you're just, जैसे I graduated, I am not doing an MBA, but I did everything. तो like sir suggested, जो सीख रहे हो आप LinkedIn से सीखो and talk to people on LinkedIn, understand their experiences, and then sort of explore your options. That's a whole different podcast, but we'll not get into that right now. But that's a very good tip that you've given. So I think people can keep that in mind when they're exploring. Okay. So so how did you go about choosing your course in college? What was your
Yeah,
method
sure.
like?
Sure. So as far as I remember, when I started preparing for my MBA, I aimed for IMT Ghaziabad. And in fact, I would suggest you not to do that. I mean, there's a reason for that. So, IMT is a brilliant college. I'm not saying it's a bad college. And the decision it actually happened great to me. And then things have been really nice after that. Why I chose IMT Ghaziabad was because I was interested in marketing, first of all. That was my first inclination. And I thought which are the good colleges for marketing during that time. And IMT was one of them. And secondly, I wanted a college that's near to my home, and it was connected directly to the rail line. Yeah, I mean, that was a stupid thing too. I mean, when I think about it in the retrospect. But then during those circumstances were like that, and my family wanted me to be here, and I thought that's the best way I can help them as well. Yeah. And then I appeared for my CAT exams. And amongst the colleges that I had an option for based on my percentile, IMT was the best option to go. And about marketing, so I talked to a lot of people, which might be a good course for me. And then the options that came out were in general MBA were finance, which is related to a lot of number crunching, money. I was not interested in that during that time, right? Operations was something at that time seen purely for engineers. You have your supply chains and you how do you deliver goods to the last customer, or how do you align your operations that are most optimized, right? So I thought marketing is a good way to go. That seemed like an easy way to go during that time, and I went for it. Oh yeah, one more thing about data and analytics. That's a different story. But that I realized that in my second year, when this whole pandemic happened, and I saw how fast this healthcare data is being generated, and I saw if I can crunch these numbers really well and take decisions based on that, data analytics might come in very handy, and that's why I went for a specialization in that.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. So basically, you are suggesting that not just present ka dekhe, but future maybe what is working out. I think that is what you chose and you went it because marketing. I think jab tak consumerism hai, tab tak marketing is going to be there. That is something. It's like even I am a marketer, so that way. So I believe that jab tak hai, tab tak rahega. So another question is why did you choose a college in India and not abroad? And are colleges in India as good as the colleges abroad?
Oh,
MBA
sure.
college.
Yeah, sure. So I can tell you why I choose to go for a college in India. But why I can't tell you is how the MBA is in foreign colleges, because I don't think I'm equipped for that because I have not experienced that. But there are other people who are doing that currently, right? We know our batchmates are doing that. So I think they are a better judge of that. But I'll tell you why I choose to go for an MBA in India. First of all, colleges which are abroad, they usually require you to go through GMAT first and then have certain level of experience. I think that's minimum 2 years of experience. And when I graduated out of my BDS, I wanted to kind of fast track my career growth. That was one. Secondly, again, my family needed me to be around. There were some medical issues at home. That's why I did not want to go abroad. That's second. Yeah, I think that's majorly the decision I made for going for a college in India.
On a side note, just branching out of this, are all MBA colleges good? मतलब कोई भी college उठा लो and you can just go to them and get a good job. What would you what's your take on this actually? Because you've been there, so.
Sure. So I kind of foresaw this question coming in, right? And I did my research. So if I answer, I can project some good data. And I made a list of colleges that are very relevant to us, right? And how these colleges are. So no, not every college is equal. There are rankings in MBAs, but the problem is MBA rankings are not very consistent. You don't have good MBA rankings in India right now. So I did my own list. I created about 3 tiers which are relevant to us. Beyond this tier, I think it's not very much useful to look for an MBA if you are going for an MBA. And I'll tell you why. So before that, I would talk about how do you get into an MBA, right? Because the college you take in, that depends upon the number you're getting in an exam, right? So there are majorly 4 or 5 exams that you go for when you are going for an MBA. The major one is CAT that everyone applies for. That's conducted by the IIMs. That includes all the government institutions, including the IIMs, IIM Ahmedabad, the new IIMs, the baby IIMs. In fact, most of the private colleges also take that. Your IMTs, GIMs, everyone takes that. The second most important exam is ZAT. That's conducted by XLRI Jamshedpur. And most of the private colleges now also accept that score. The other exams are very specific to the universities that you want to apply, which is Symbiosis ka SNAP. That's very limited to Symbiosis University, and it has great colleges like Symbiosis Pune and SCMHRD. And then you have NMAT, which is for Narsi Munji Mumbai. And then lastly, if you want to go for an HR degree, there's TISNET. That's for Tata Institute of Social Sciences. These are primarily the major exams. Now, based on your person, so everyone appears for these exams. These exams mostly have 3 sections. One is your VA, which is basically English. Then the second is maths, quantitative, and third is logical reasoning, which is the aptitude portion of the exam. Based on your percentile which you get, where you stand in the exam, you get your colleges, where you apply to these colleges, and they call you for interviews and group discussions. So I'll start this. Probably here, this is where you can put a stamp because I'm going to discuss about the list of colleges. So the first tier is tier 1 colleges. These you can expect if you have a CAT percentile beyond 97 percentile, just to be safe. If you are a general candidate, I'm kind of expecting. I mean, not expecting, this is my experience, so I know what percentile a general candidate lies in. So 97 percentile is where you will get these colleges. These include your IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, Calicut, Indore, IIM Shillong, and then the new IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, XLRI, JBIMs, and what else? MDI, FMS, and SPJ. I think I covered all of them, right? So these are the colleges
Yeah,
that
you
are
did.
tier 1 colleges. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the percentile lies from 97 to 100 percentile. The average salary for these colleges is about 25 to 30 lakhs per annum that you can
And
expect. This is average.
sorry
Yeah.
to मतलब sorry to butt in, but एक question कि ये salary is for those people who are absolutely freshers or with people with some experience also get the same.
So yeah, so the salaries depend upon the job you're applying for and the domain you're applying for. For
Okay.
example, in India, a sales job, when a sales recruiter comes, they usually look for people who have relatively lesser experience, less than 2 years of experience,
अच्छा,
because these people are fresh and out of college and they can be molded in the way that these guys want,
they wanted them to.
right?
Okay.
So the salary is really good in this range as well. Yes, in consulting, you would be paid according to your experience.
Okay.
So it depends upon the industry and the type of job.
Okay.
Right. But on an average, you can expect, even if you are a fresher or an experienced person, if you go for a tier 1 college, you can expect a salary range of about 25 to 30 lakhs average. And there are outliers, you might get less, and there is a high chance that you will get more. But this is the average based on the latest data. Right. Then there is the tier 1.5 that lies between tier 2 and tier 1. These include very different colleges, very niche colleges which are specialized in certain domains. And these include your XIMB Bhubaneswar, IMT Ghaziabad, Symbiosis Pune, SCMHRD, that's again in Symbiosis College, and the new IIMs. These include your IIM Raipur, IIM Ranchi, IIM Udaipur, and other colleges, right? So the average salary as per the latest data over here is 16 to 20 lakhs per annum. And then the percentile you need to break into these colleges is about, let's say, 95 or 94 to 97 percentile would guarantee you these colleges. Not guarantee, but you would stand a very good chance. Then you have the tier 2 colleges, which lie after the 1.5 list. And these include your TAPMI, GIM, Goa Institute of Management, KJ Samaya, Symbiosis Bangalore, and IMI. I think I covered all of them. Yeah. So the average salary range as of now is about 10 to 15 lakhs per annum in these colleges. You can easily expect a package like that. And the percentile range you need is about 87 to 93 to 94 percentile to break into these colleges. These are the colleges that are.
Okay, so these are the colleges that we should go for. मतलब इससे नीचे we shouldn't look
Well,
at anything else.
yeah, I'll tell you what. Yeah, this is a good question. So I would suggest you not to go for these colleges beyond that, because after this the return on investments get hampered. Right, you are paying about 15 lakhs to 20 lakhs for your MBA degree, but then if you are getting a package of about 6 lakhs to 7 lakhs, right, and add on to that some, maybe many of these colleges also have hostel fees as different. Yeah, hostel pay as different, or mess fees as different, right? So I think the return on investment really suffers, and then you don't get a head start that you would want out of a master's degree if you're going for an MBA.
Makes
And
sense.
then, yeah, so one of the questions that is asked a lot is about, I think you are also going to ask me, is why not go for a healthcare specific MBA?
Yes.
Right. I really think it's not worth it going for that, except if it's for Goa Institute of Management Healthcare Management Program, or maybe you have a pharmaceutical MBA in Narsimhanji, Mumbai. These two are good programs; they are outliers. But then I would not suggest you to go for these is because the kind of jobs these colleges are offering, you can actually break into them without an MBA as well. These are not very specialized, right? And then you think about it, you are a BDS in an MBA college, or you are an MBBS, or you are an healthcare person in an MBA college, a general MBA colleges. Out of the 500 batch, you are the only one who carries a healthcare specialization. Maybe two of them, two of you, three of you, right? And then that gives you a lot of advantage when a healthcare company or a pharmaceutical company visits the campus. And these companies usually visit for leadership training roles, which you don't get in healthcare specific colleges most of the time. Right. The salary packages are offered much better in general MBA as compared to a healthcare MBA. That's why I would suggest you to go for an. And then again, right, if you are trying your luck for the masters, why not aim for the best? That's why I told it's not good to aim for just IMT Ghaziabad, how I did. Aim for an IIM Ahmedabad, aim for an IIM Bangalore, aim for an ISB, and maybe you would get an IMT Ghaziabad and you would be fine with it. But don't aim less. Yeah.
I mean, if you aim for the moon, then you fall on the stars वाली चीज है.
Yeah.
That makes sense. क्योंकि actually पता है सर, more than anything else, what I feel is लोगों को मतलब मुझे भी ये डर लगता है कि क्या am I equipped enough to do a conventional MBA because I left maths at a very early stage, and ये चीज तो मैं आपसे कब से डिस्कस करती आ रही हूँ. तो
हाँ
what
जी.
people want to know is कि are they equipped enough? Can they do a general MBA? Rather than a healthcare, क्योंकि that is why people just pick up that option कि हाँ healthcare MBA है, something on our domain, don't want to leave what we did for the past 5 years. So can you just educate people on that so that लोगों के दिमाग से वो block निकले of sorts?
This is actually a very, very good question, man. I mean, I wish when I was preparing, someone asked me this question or was there to answer this question. Right. So I would just get into the psyche of a person who is going through this decision right now. Maybe you are an intern, maybe you are doing a clinical practice after graduating from your BDS. Now you think you have spent a considerable amount of time and invested a lot of time and invested a lot of money for the past 5, 6, or 7 years in your BDS, in your dentistry. Right. And you feel hesitant about going to a different direction. But then you have to realize that career is not a 5 to 7 years thing. You did your 5 to 7 years right now, but career is a 30 years long thing, and in cases 40 years long thing. Do you really want to determine your career based on the 5 years that you spent? Right, where you are right now, that is determined by your past. But then where you want to be, where you are truthful about your own self, where you want to be, that will be determined by the decisions that you make today. And then right now, you can actually take into account the learnings that you had from your BDs and then apply them to get a better job. So why not do that? I mean, why not have better experiences? That's one. Coming to the maths portion of it, yes, if when you become a manager, especially an MBA, you would be required to crunch a lot of numbers and take decision based on numbers. That's given, right? And then CAT also carries, out of the three sections, two of them are maths dominated sections, aptitude as well as quantitative ability. But then you have to realize when I appeared for my CAT, before that, even I was skeptical about if I would be able to do that because in my 12th class, I had just 49 numbers in my board exams in maths, right? That was funny. But then I realized that, if I really put myself to it, I can do that. It's not very hard, right? And then I do know if I put in the efforts right now, I would be able to make it because I have a purpose right now that is to secure a good MBA. And I did that. And so I scored 95 percentile in my CAT as well as that exam. And then one thing I would suggest people to do is give appear for CAT even without preparation. So after my final year, I appeared for CAT, even though I was not I would not have gotten a college because I had my internship to go. Right. But then I had scored about 66 percentile during that time. I was disappointed that it was very less. But then it kind of gave me a platform to assess myself where I stand right now. And from here, where I need to go and which are the sections I want to work harder on. And maybe if you give CAT, you would realize that you are maybe good at maths, like you are better at maths, what you perceived yourself to be. Right. And then probably in the next 1 year, you can concentrate a lot more on those areas which require a lot more focus. That should be the strategy.
the thing about giving a exam, not even a mock, like actually going and giving the exam to
Mhm.
know where you stand is a very good tip. And for those interns or final year graduates who can do that, please go ahead and do that. That is something which will at least, give you a little more insight into whether, that's a good way to figure out if you want to do an
Yeah,
MBA. I mean,
definitely.
उससे dishearten नहीं होना, but at least you know where you stand. So that is one thing which is a very good suggestion, sir. I really like that.
Mhm.
Okay. Another question is, can an MDS or an BDS graduate switch to the corporate sector without a MBA degree? Is that possible?
Yes, yes, you can. Definitely, you can. There are multiple roles that you can try it in the corporate, and these include roles in the clinical side. That includes your clinical researcher role, where you support the research because you have already done it yourself. The medical writing roles, and then this very new roles are emerging right now, where you can take on a role of a product manager right out of BDS, and that is very specific to bootstrap startups right now, and then companies who are going through early stages of their funding because they need people who have some kind of understanding about the medical industry, and you guys are specialized into that. You are not just dentists, you are doctors at the end of the day. You understand the industry a lot better, you have interacted with the patients. So I would suggest you, for people who have just done their BDs, search for companies, read about news, which are the companies that are coming up in these sectors, which have just gotten the funding. You get that a lot in the newspapers these days. And then send out requests to these their founders on LinkedIn and ask if you guys can help them in that. And maybe if things may go really well, they would hire you for a senior role there without even an MBA. That can be a good way. For MDS, the journey is a bit different because right now you are a specialist. You have a lot of clinical knowledge which others do. So you should aim for very specific roles which are kind of specialized into this medical world. And that includes your clinical reviewers or medical content reviewers. Uh, uh, for this interview, actually, I mean, I kind of looked through my company where the MDS people are working. And many of them are clinical reviewers or medical reviewers right now in my company, which is every company makes some claims. Every drug company makes some aims, claims. They claim that they can probably reduce diabetes or reduce your sugar levels by about, let's say, 54% after you have already taken metformin in a combination therapy. Now, marketeers like us, I mean, I am a doctor, but then marketeers, other marketeers do not know what does this actually mean. They do not know how to read these research papers. But as an MDS guy, you have already specialized into the medical world. You have done your research, you have done your clinical projects as well. So you can go ahead and do it for them. Then as marketeers, we need to know what is it that the patient really wants, and you understand the disease pathology very well, and you understand what patients really want because you have interacted closely with them. So you go ahead and tell us, if I'm launching a drug for a particular disease, what is it that really affects the patient in that disease, and how we can solve them, how we can probably provide a message to the patient for that. That's what the rules are for MDS people right now.
What is exactly this return on investment? Because we don't generally talk in these terms as doctors. So if you can just
Yeah.
expand on that a bit. That.
Even colleges, you can get back the amount of fees you paid in a year or maybe 1.5 year. For tier 1.5 colleges, that include your XI, MB, IMT, and all those colleges, you can get back that fees within probably 1.5 years to 2 years. And then for tier 2 colleges, you would take about 2 years to 3 years to get back that money, based on if you continue working in the same company and you don't switch, right? That's one. Beyond that, it's very difficult to get a good return on investment within the first 2 3 years because you have to account for inflation as well, right? Because money loses its value every year. So the amount, let's say you pay 10 rupees in 2015 to get an apple, the 10 rupees won't get you an apple right now because the money lost its value over time. So if a return of investment is going 2 to 3 years beyond when you graduated, you should aim to earn a lot more than just your MBA fees. That's return on investment.
That actually was very simple. Like, मतलब हम तो इसको बहुत layman terms में explain करते हैं, but this was actually very well explained. Okay. So I think I have spoken about, we've spoken, and since we are on the topic of return on investment, is the return on investment when we do an MBA from the colleges that you suggested, is it good after doing a BDS? क्योंकि BDS में भी private college से we've spent a lot. So that makes.
Definitely. Yes, yes. So that's why I think going for an MBA is a good option, because at this point you have invested fairly a lot amount of money already in your undergraduation. And then if you go for a clinical practice, you would have to spend in a lot of money more, right? So in business and probably in life, we make decisions based on the choices we make from here on. So you have two choices here on either to invest in your MBA or either to go for a clinical practice and invest in your clinic or an MDS. So when you see the return on investment based on these, the past is a sunk cost that is already gone. That money is already gone. So how you can better get most value out of the cost that you have already done, and then further in the future, which is the decision you make, what is the cost it incurs, and what is the return you are getting. Your decision should be based on that. If you are thinking about it in money, uh, from the money point of view. And for many of us, we don't think like that because we are privileged enough that our parents don't expect a return on investment, or you have a good financial cushion, and then you really want to go for a clinical practice, then that's great. Go ahead, do that. But if you're thinking, if you are a person like me who does not come from a very high, very good, I mean, very, very rich parents, then probably an MBA is a much better decision.
Makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Because at the end of the day, see, what I tell everybody when people come to me is, why are you doing a master's? You're doing it so that you can get a better job. I mean, nobody
Yeah.
else does a master's because उनको interest है. जो interest आप bachelor's already कर चुके हो. Interest है, definitely. Like people switch their profession. So वो masters
Mhm.
करते हैं to equip them with skills. But at the end of the day, you want a better job, you want a good return on investment. So I think that is something that we are all looking for, everybody, चाहे हम out loud बोले या ना बोले, but we are thinking that at least in our head, because obviously. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll just talk about this. I mean, there is this moral aspect to it, right? You kind of demonize money, that you are leaving patients, you are leaving doing good for the society and going for the money. But in the end, you have to be truthful to your own self. If you're not doing good for your own self, monetary wise, and you are struggling with money right now, how can you even think about doing good for the others? First of all, you have to
Correct.
have that security your own self just to do good for others. You can do probably
Correct.
much better for others if you secure your own self. That's
That
why I
is very
think
true.
MBA was a decision that was good for me. Probably it's not for someone else, but then probably it's good for someone else as well.
Yeah, I mean, मैं whenever I do these podcasts, I'm like कि I really hope कि हम किसी को भटका नहीं रहे हैं and all of that stuff, because
नहीं
it
नहीं.
is a very it is a very fine line. But this is mainly so that people get to know that these opportunities are there. Because जो आपके टाइम पे नहीं था, जो मेरे टाइम पे नहीं था, I want that to be widely available to people, so that one place they have all their questions answered. So that is why. So that's a very good point जो आपने बोला कि पहले you need to be self-sufficient to actually cater to someone else.
Mhm.
Otherwise आपका
Yeah,
वहां भी मन नहीं लग रहा है, and you're not really giving in your 100%. So as long as you're doing what you're doing and you're happy at it, you'll 100% give your 100%, 200% also maybe.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what I think. Definitely.
So, okay. So, you've already answered this question. मतलब this was one of my questions. Ki what exams did you give, and what all exams should aspiring candidates give? But I think you've gone really into the detail of those
Mhm.
of that topic. The next thing that I want to related to that is, how did you prepare? What resources did you use? What would you recommend to people? That is something which is important for aspiring candidates.
Yes, glad that you asked this question, because the most difficult thing is to get started, right? To get into that process. So I think I really hope this really helps people who are willing to go for an MBA. Again, I would start with telling you, go perform a mock or perform an actual CAT exam or perform an actual ZAT exam. Appear for them. I think ZAT applications are still open, or maybe test applications are still open. Just go and apply for them. Just see where you stand right now without preparation. That would be the first step. Perform a mock. Yeah, there are free mocks. I think there is a website called hitbullseye.mba that used to have free mocks when I was preparing. Right. That's one. And then I personally took coaching in Mangalore. I was doing my internship and I was going for MBA coaching during that time. It was from Time Institute. And there are two or three major institutes that are really good at coaching. There is Time, there is Career Launcher, and there are others as well, but then these are the primary two. And I would suggest Time because a lot many people appear for its mocks. And one thing that really helped me was appearing for mocks. I took every mock very seriously. Over the course of my preparation in 1 year, I appeared for almost over 30 or 40 mocks, and I took every single one of them as a serious cat day, as if I'm appearing on the cat day. And that really helped me. That really helped me, right? And so Time offers lot more participants as compared to CL. And then Time mocks are a lot more tougher than the actual CAT day. So when you appear it on the CAT day, you would find them actually easier than actual exam. I mean, on a general basis, this can't be general. This can't be very specific to each exam. There are CAT exams which were difficult in the mocks as well, especially in some sections. CAT IMs have been throwing that lately. Yeah, so that was my strategy about the materials I utilized. So I used to practice it on my own before going to the class. I took classes as my revision. So I used to prepare from the Time material that the institute provided me just to learn about the basics, YouTube, as well as Arun Sharma. That's a book called Arun Sharma. I used to utilize that. And then on the actual day of the classroom, I just used to take that as a revision for the topics I've already learned. After that, I used to kind of solve the problems in Time material. And if I had any problem, used to go again to my teachers in coaching and ask them the doubts. That's how I prepared for.
That is pretty helpful for someone who is going ahead with their preparing in their internship. Now, another thing that I want to know is, let's say for example, there are people, like, it will be beneficial for both the crowds. There are people, say for instance me, I'm a working professional and I want to apply for an MBA. Generally people do that keep after they work for
Mhm.
a few years. So how would you recommend, I mean, if you have an idea, how would you recommend they prepare? Because they don't have that time, 8 hours, 9 hours in the office, or maybe the clinic, and then they want to prepare. So any tips for them?
Sure. So, CAT preparation does not require a large amount of time. So, when we look at CAT, it's a competitive exam, and we think of it as analogous to any other competitive exam, which might be a JEE or a NEET. But then it's very different than those things because you don't need to cram in a lot new information, right? It's just an aptitude. It's a test of your aptitude and your thinking ability. So even if you are putting just an hour or two in the day, that's very much sufficient to prepare for CAT, and you can easily cross 95 percentile with that preparation. Also depends upon where you stand right now, but I think all of us are equipped and do have that much capability to score a 95 percentile. And for that, when I was preparing for my internship, I mean, I was in my internship, and when I was preparing for CAT, I had the strategy when I would wake up before going to the hospital at about 6, study for an hour, do about 2 to 3 questions from LRDI, that is logical reasoning, come back, and in the evening go for my library. I used to study in the central library in college, and then prepare for 1 or 2 hours. On the weekends, you have a lot of time on the weekends, right? You can appear for mocks. Mocks are for 3 hours. And then on probably a Saturday, you appear for a mock, and then Sunday, you revise that. That is a strategy that you can take.
Okay, that actually sounds good. I mean, if someone's really serious, this is a good doable plan. And how long do you suggest that this preparation period should go? Like 2, 3 months, 6, 8 months? What should people look out for?
Um, I mean, as early as you can get started, it would be
Ah,
better because sometimes I have seen my friends who get into this analysis paralysis. They get into this kind of very tricky zone where they are not fully confident if they do want to go for CAT or an MDS, right? An MB or an MDs. But then I would suggest you to give yourself a deadline that, see, Sankalp, see, Anita, I'm going to give you a timeline of 2 weeks, right? You have
hmm,
2 weeks. You have to decide what you have to do and start preparing for it. Because I
hmm,
would quote Carl Jung over here. Carl Jung suggested there is no right or wrong path. The only right way is to choose a direction. So whichever
correct.
direction you land on, if you do it correctly or if you put yourself to it, you land on the right path. And that path might be that you don't want to go for an MBA. Maybe you would realize mid path, like one of our friends, Powers, realized. She realized that she does not want to go for an MBA. after preparing for it. Or even after MBA, she realized she does not want to go for any MBAs. Right.
I know.
So I think it's good to just start on a path as early as you can.
Okay, that's a good advice because yeah, jitna like however fast you go ahead for it, it's much better. Okay,
Yeah.
another thing is, um, because you've answered most of the questions earlier, so work experience. Now, would you say that, I mean, there's no right or wrong, like you just said, but
Mhm.
is it better to have some amount of work experience before you apply to an MBA college, or should you like directly go and जैसे हम BDS करके MDS कर लेते हैं, like just immediately
Mhm.
after, or should we have, because all colleges suggest that you should have at least 2 to 3 years of experience, any college website that you go to. So, what do
Yeah.
you say on this?
So I did not have a lot of work experience before I went for an MBA, but I would suggest otherwise. I would suggest to definitely have some good work experience because it helps in two ways, right? The first one is every MBA college has a process through which it chooses a candidate. And then they denote a lot of marks, a considerable weightage to work experience. That is about 30 to 40% of marks is attributed to work experience and previous educational background. That's one that would it would help you to secure a good MBA. The other part is which is much more relevant, I felt, is when you have work experience, you can make a lot more sense out of what is going on in the classroom. This is not when you what many people consider because it's almost like jumping the gun, right? But it's not. You're thinking out of a long-term perspective. And then when I was in my MBA, there used to be a class of HR which talked of human resources that talked about conflicts. I could theoretically maybe read these conflicts that were happening, but I could actually not relate to them in a very good way because I have not been in those conflicts. But then when you work for a company or you are working on your own, you always have conflicts. And then when you're in a classroom, you better realize them and you can actually make sense out of them. So
Makes sense.
more than salary or going for a good MBA college, I think work experience is required if you want to have a good experience during your MBA while you are studying. That's my opinion.
That in fact, this when you were talking, this reminded me of Ashmita is my batchmate
Yeah,
and she's currently in Johns Hopkins. So I was
awesome.
just having a conversation with her one day and she's like कि अनायता अगर आना है ना तो experience होना चाहिए, because when you're sitting in the
Hmm.
classroom you know the people who have that sort of experience, and you know the people जिनके पास नहीं है, so you, because again like you said, theoretical knowledge है and practical लोगों को ज्यादा पता होता है, तो I think that is something which everybody, क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ पे ये मेंटालिटी है कि the moment you finish with one thing you get on to the another thing and then you get on to the other thing and then आगे, तो I think that is something which you made very clear कि लोगों को ये पता हो कि यार थोड़ा experience ले लो and then maybe you can go ahead for an
Mhm.
MBA, and if you're very clear कि MBA करना है तो I think side by side while you're working you can prepare
Yeah,
something on
so
those lines.
yeah, so please don't feel the pressure of the society that you have to be settled by 26 or 27. I mean, we are in that phase of Indian history that we have financial security. Our parents were struggling to make the ends meet. Right now, we have this, they don't probably, for most of us, they don't depend upon us right now. Right. So try out different things. I mean, the world is an open place. It's such a good place to be India right now. I'm so bullish on this whole Indian story, and you can be part of that. Right. There are so many opportunities out there. It's just fun. You would wake up happy every day when you try out new things. Right. And I think you should take your time before going for an MBA or even for an MDS. Maybe try out different things. Maybe try out working on the clinics and see if this is the future that is there. Are you good enough with it? Are you good with it? Like, can you make a peace with it? And if that's fine, then go for an MDS degree.
Correct.
That's my
That
opinion.
makes sense. And because, like you said, ki these 5 years are not going to matter in the next 30, 40 years. 5 years,
Yeah.
6 years, jo bhi, like at least you'll be sure, and we just don't want to end up frustrated, yeah. Wherever we are at, we don't want to be
No,
frustrated
no.
with what we are doing. So that is one thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Acha, another very important thing which will help all sorts of candidates, be it interns or people who are working professionals. how does one build their profile for an MBA application? Because it's not just your regular exam diya and clear, okay. You have a lot of walk us through the application process also. I'll ask you a separate question. But currently, how can people build their profile? What all do you need? Does everybody need to do everything, or how does it go?
Yeah, sure. So while you are going for an MBA, that's a master's, you are going to specialize in something. And then people who recruit you for the MBA or recruit you for the jobs in MBA, what they want to see is not a depth of experience, like not a specialized experience, but a breadth of experience. They want a candidate who have tried out different things, who bring about a new mindset because he has tried different things. So he has cross industry or cross domain experience because they already have people in place who can do specialized jobs. As an MBA, you are required to be a generalist. You need to know what is going on inside the industry in other industries, and if you can bring out your viewpoints in your own job. So I would suggest you to try out different things, try out different internships, try out different jobs before you go for an MBA. And it's very important to have some sort of guidance to do that, or a specialized person who can help you in this. That's my opinion.
Okay, that definitely that makes a lot of sense because this is something that I've heard. Ki, you need people. Matlab in MBA interviews are rigorous. I mean, that is a
Yeah.
whole other podcast to altogether. But MBA interviews are rigorous, and they get to know literally the soul of you. So I think that is something that's there. Okay. Um. Okay, what is it that what makes a college application? Let's say, for example, Kalko, you are sitting in the interview panel. What do you think makes a profile stand out for an MBA? Like, if two people are applying, what would make one profile win over the other?
Yeah, I would probably see uh, how many different types of positions this guy has had,
Hmm.
right? Maybe he can be in content once and then move on to project management next, and then clinical writing the third.
Hmm.
I would see this candidate as a person who is very dynamic and can go through changes because we are moving really fast. We are moving at a breath taking speed right now in the industry, in the healthcare industry. This is I am coming from the point of view of pharmaceuticals and life sciences industry because that's where I work and that's where my primary interest lies. And I think a lot of candidates would like to be in these industries as well. So for
Hmm.
the first time after COVID, healthcare is going through a technology transformation, and we need people who have knowledge about where the world is moving. They have tried out different things, and I would still suggest everyone to learn a bit of Excel because that is a really given advantage when you are looking for a candidate if you are hiring someone, because you want people to make decisions based on data. If you don't know Excel, if you don't know how to collate this data, it would be very difficult for you to make these decisions. That would I would look for in a candidate.
That's a good resource because I've heard literally everybody say make an Excel sheet. Like, so I think that is something that people should really invest in the first go. Regardless of, just on a side note, regardless of people, if they're going in for an MBA or not, even in the clinics, Excel knowledge is going to help you out at the end of the day. So
Oh,
I think,
definitely.
so I think Excel is, क्या कहते हैं, omnipresent and omnipotent. So I think everybody should do that. Okay.
And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love doing Excel. I mean, that's one of my. I do Excel in
That,
my past life. that
हाँ,
that
that,
sounds
that,
boring right now, but then I do that. I love Excel. I really love
नहीं क्या
Excel.
बोरिंग पीपल हैव इंस्टाग्राम रील्स आई थिंक यू शुड ओपन अ पेज फॉर इट उसमें पीपल आर लिटरली गिविंग एक्सेल हैक्स और मेरे को वही दिखाता है
Ah,
एआई इज जस्ट द एल्गोरिथम इज जस्ट शोइंग मी दैट ओनली आई एम लाइक वाह ओके
ah,
that is the level of
okay.
adulting we are at right now so
So I
huh,
don't use social media. It just really
huh.
distracts me.
Yes,
Yeah. So I
yes, fun
like to do
fact.
things which are very focused. Yeah.
Yeah, fun fact
But then
about
I'm
Sankalp.
very active. I'm very active on LinkedIn though. I create a lot of content
Yes,
related to
I also want
life
to
sciences
suggest
industry.
please go check out his LinkedIn profile. ये मैं
Yeah.
तभी बोलना चाहती थी in the starting initially. He posts really good stuff. थोड़ा कभी कभी सर के ऊपर से भी जा सकता है if you are not really up to but it's really good to read his take on things. So that's the only thing I'll say. You go ahead and you go to his profile and read. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, sir, apart from giving the exams and all of that, wo to chalo, you've talked about which exams to give, what percentile for which colleges. What is the application process like? Once you clear the
Mhm.
exam, what after that?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, you have to apply for these exams. These include all your CATs, SATs, all these exams. Based on the percentile you get, you apply for colleges which you think might lie in your percentile range. So every college has a website. You go onto that website and apply for that college. And you put in your marks. So many colleges accept multiple scores. So I'm talking about IMT Ghaziabad. It accepts CAT as well as ZAT. So I had a bit higher number in ZAT. They were almost equal, but there was some decimal difference. So I applied through ZAT. And they took that score. For I think XIMB is one of those colleges which accepts multiple exams, including CAT, ZAT, then XMT, their own exam, and in fact even GMAT. So you see which all colleges you want to apply for, and then go through their application process. And then if you get qualified, if you clear the cutoff, they would call you for an interview. Interview, they would ask you about your work experience, where you want to see yourself in 5 years or 10 years down the line, where are your achievements, or what are your strengths or weaknesses, which you should know about. They really want a self-aware candidate to be there in their program. And then many people apply for it and the seats are limited. So you should really stand out over there. And then there is a group discussion process where they give you a topic and everyone gets to speak about it. And then whosoever has the most convincing points can actually direct the crowd to relate to his point, wins the round. And then you get marks based on that. And then there's some of these colleges have other activities as well, which include writing paragraphs, extempore, all these. That depends upon the colleges.
Okay, that is a pretty rigorous process though. But I think you can, you can prepare yourself for that as well and then, clear. Because I think it's better ki you're not just judging a person on the MCQ score that they're getting. You're
No.
overall seeing the person to get them in. So yeah, I think
Oh
that.
yeah, so this is a very interesting point that very less people know about. So the CAT score that
Hmm.
has about just 10 to 15 percentage or 10-20% weightage in the final selection procedure. I mean, this is
Oh,
something
I
that
didn't
not
know
many
that.
people know about. Yeah,
Even I
it's
didn't
very
know
less.
that.
It's very less.
Okay,
Very less.
nice.
Yeah.
चलो सुन के like for the people out there सुन के आपको अच्छा लगा होगा. Okay. um हाँ, अच्छा, another question. Um, do colleges like top B schools जैसे IIM की बात करें, if you don't have work experience, do people accept you? Is that a thing? Like, is work experience a criteria to get rejected? कि नहीं है तो we'll reject you, something on those lines.
No, so in the context of Indian MBAs, I think most of the people have work experience ranging from 0 to 2 years. I think about 60 to 70% or even 80% of the crowd lies in this range.
Hmm.
And that's because I think in context of Indian MBAs, they're not looking for a person who's specialized in one domain, as which is very much the case in MBAs which you do abroad, right? They
Hmm.
require you to be part of an industry for so many years that you can take on a senior leadership role. But
Hmm.
then Indian MBAs usually hire for middle management role and fast track these people to a senior management role. So even
Hmm.
if you don't have 2 years of experience, that's completely fine. Indian MBAs do accept that.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know because then people can actually aim for it and get that, matlab they can still aim for it and get a shot in as well.
हाँ
Okay,
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल yeah.
that's perfect. Okay, do students require any research? Like, do they need to do some research? Is research good to have for an MBA college or something on those lines?
Oh,
जैसे
you
जो हमारे
mean
clinical
the
research होते हैं.
clinical research types of it. Okay,
हाँ.
okay. Huh, it's good to have if you are aiming for an healthcare industry role. So a lot of these roles. Uh, so I'll tell you what are the roles in healthcare industry first and how you can relate research to them. Right. So I work in a particular domain of healthcare industry called pharmaceutical and life sciences, which include your pharmaceutical firms, the biotechnology firms, and the biopharmaceutical firms. So let's say you have a product. You let's say have a toffee like a mango bite. Then this product goes through a life cycle. पहले उसके बारे में रिसर्च होती है हमें कैसे प्रोडक्ट बनाने हैं. Then it is launched. You market it to people. Then it goes through a very solid sales कि अभी इतना जल्दी जल्दी बढ़ रहा है. Then after a while the sales kind of stagnate because
Stand.
कितने लोग ही ज्यादा खा लेंगे उसके बाद. If you have covered all the kids and everyone is having it, where do we get more audience now? This is the peak phase, and then it goes through a decline. Some new toffee is launched, and then it goes to an eventual decline. So this is called a product life cycle. Now think about this in terms of a drug in the life sciences industry. That's called a drug life cycle. And then in the drug life cycle, how it is different is कि जो पहला R&D वाला स्टेज रहता है ना, रिसर्च और डेवलपमेंट वाला, वो बहुत लंबा रहता है हमारा. It takes about 10 years to launch a drug. So that's why vaccine was kind of a very good breakthrough for us. It got launched in a year. Yeah, so usually it lasts for 10 years, right? And during that time, you have various services like clinical research, or like you have these clinical trials, phase one, phase two, phase three, phase zero, right? And during that time, if you have services that you can provide to these pharma firms, maybe you can take up their clinical trials that we would do it for you. Or maybe the data you are generating from these clinical trials, we would assess this data for you. You just have to conduct those trials. There are various services that you can provide during this stage and even in the commercialization phase when the drug is already launched. Now, if you have some amount of understanding about how a research is done and you have done research on your own, you understand these processes really well, and then you can support these clients a lot better. That's why if you are aiming for clinical research roles or even a manager in a pharmaceutical industry, research is very good to have.
That's actually pretty helpful. Like कोई इतना depth में सोचता नहीं है. People just do a research because research करना है, you know, or they're interested or however that goes. Okay. So I think we've pretty much covered everything that we could have. And thank you so much for your time because I really, really hope that this will help everybody, MDS, BDS, any graduate who is looking to switch for an MBA, find out what any life sciences graduate. So thank you so much for your time, sir. And hopefully we'll do another podcast on how the MBA course is. So whenever we get
Well,
some time, we can do that as well. Thank you so much.
welcome and thanks a lot to you, Anahita, for giving me this opportunity. Really loved talking about this.
Yes,
And if there's
same.
anything, anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm really
Yes.
active on LinkedIn again.
I think people are going to reach out to you regardless. This is going to happen. So once we get the
Yeah.
podcast live. So thank you so much for your time, sir.
All right. Thanks, Anahita. Have a great day.
You too.